I think the first place to start off on the Jing Orb is talk about Jing in general and the idea of the Jing energy and Chinese medicine and traditional Chinese and Taoist philosophy. Jing is a primordial energy. It's an energy that comes from the kidneys. It's like your battery pack. It really is your longevity. When we think of Qi, I always think about, Muhammad Ali or one of these great boxers in the first round or first 2-3 rounds of a fight or something. That's Qi energy, the way you mobilize your energy immediately. The way you mobilize your physical energy and your immunological energy. That's Qi. But Jing is another thing. That's the 15th round of the fight. That's the end of the fight. That's that ability to get up when you get knocked down. Recently, there was a fight. Tyson Fury got up in the 12th round of this fight, and he was completely knocked out, and he got up in the 10 seconds. And that's Jing. That's a whole nother energy. That's your core essence, your ability to survive, your ability to get up when everybody else says stay down. That's what this device is working on. So that's kind of why we're like, let's put it under the right name, Jing Orb.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. And I think I had mentioned that I had heard conversation around that many years ago from another master of traditional Chinese medicine, but frankly, it was kind of over my head at the time. But you put it into such clear terms, to make it understandable. So, I mean, I really appreciate that.
Right on. Thank you. I feel like a lot of these esoteric ideas, it's too esoteric. People go, what the heck is this person even talking about? And I like to take some of these simple health ideas and make them useful for everybody. And I think we all get this idea of Jing. This is like the reason why somebody can live to be 98 or 102 versus somebody makes it to 73. That's a very substantial difference in health capability, but it's not a day-to-day, moment-to-moment thing. It's a long-term thing, and that's what Jing is about, building up that long-term resilience. And what's interesting about this particular energy is that there is an aspect of it that's genetic, and you're born with a certain genetic predisposition. And I'm thinking of some of my friends who've had most of their relatives die in their 50s and 60s, but they're still going in their late 60s, heading into their 70s, and probably going to make it into their 80s, their 90s, and they're going to defy their genetics. And this is important because the Jing energy, yes, it's somewhat set, but it can be improved. It can be extended. It can be corrected, and you can increase Jing by certain things that you're eating, certain behaviors that you have, for example, walking barefoot and being connected to the earth, and eating kidney-friendly foods, and the Jing Orb. And that's why I like to promote all the methods to improve Jing. But when someone really needs it, like they've been in a car accident or they really need a boost, the Jing Orb is one of the most effective tools we've got to be used once every 2 days. And just in a 60-day period can literally rejuvenate somebody from a very dangerous, almost life-threatening situation. For example, if they've been in shock or a car accident, and bring them all the way back where their body can get back to normal and get back to healing. Let's talk about the power of the Jing Orb, because it's essentially using the structuring of water, the power of subtle electricity, and really subtle energy to improve Jing and get us back on our feet much more quickly than we would have thought, or accelerate healing, like in the case of your wife after her accident. The actual system works through it's like you plug it into the wall. It's just a normal plugged in kind of system and unit. And then you're going to actually take a piece of it, which is the orb, and you're going to drop it in the water with you while you're in the bathtub. Now that right there, people are going to go, wait, what? Or you're going to put it on, with your feet or your hands, any way that you can use it. So let's talk about that side of it, because sometimes we think about, the Jing Orb. When I think about it, I think about bathtub, because that's how I've always used it. I throw it in the bathtub with me. Some people think you're going to put an electrical device in the bathtub. Are you out of your mind? Some people think about putting their feet into these things. Some people I've also done it with my hands, or put both my hands and my elbows into it. Tell us about that. What's the best way to use it in your experience? You have more experience than I with it. I like all the above.
Well, when I have the opportunity, I prefer doing in a full bathtub as well. There's really nothing like that. However, we've had just amazing results, even with one hand in the water.
There's something really powerful that happens to the water like when I'm in my bathtub. So for example, I've got a nice bathtub. Then we throw the Jing Orb in there for a 35-minute session, which I want to get into that for a second, because the inventor talks about this 17.5-minute cycle of water. And so you want to get one entire 17.5-minute cycle of water. The only way to guarantee that's going to happen is a 35-minute session, which we do once every 2 days, which is the maximum. And then I also take the water that I'm drinking and I put it into the water with me in the bathtub. So I'll seal it. So I'll fill it up with spring water, seal it off, and then put it in the bathtub with me. And then there is something that happens to that water.
Oh,
And I usually do that in a glass bottle, by the way. I'll put that in glass
Uh-huh.
sealed, and then I'll put 1 or 2 or 3 bottles of water in there. And then I'll bring that to the fridge later. And then when it cools off, because, I'm in a warm bath, I drink that. And there's something that happens. It reminds me a lot of the old days of, I don't like using this word because it's so misused, but radionics. It reminds me there's something that happens when you drink that water. It's like it's already in tune with your body. It's almost like it's part of your body already. When you drink water and then you get on a trampoline and everything sloshes around, it didn't absorb.
Yeah.
That would never happen with this kind of water. It absorbs instantly.
Yeah, your body is like totally prepped for it. It's amazing. And it makes sense, because one of the aspects that Terry describes is that we all have a unique biosignature. It's very complex signature that represents us individually. And when we get into any water body, our signature resonates in the water. We're essentially made of water. We get in the water, that signature resonates in there. So when we get into the container and this unit is turned on, it's essentially having an interplay with our own biosignature. It's kind of imprinted into this whole energy process. So when you stick that bottle into the bath with you, it's really creating a bottle of water that's perfectly tuned to your biosignature, almost from a homeopathic point of view or whatever. In fact, people that do testing, when they test that water for the individual whose bath it was, it's like super powerful the way it tests. But if they were to test that water for anybody else, the person would go weak with it. So it's only for the individual that was in the bath.
That's a good point, because somebody might be thinking, hey, I want to get into a bathtub with my wife, husband, significant other, and it's just one person at a time. Is that correct?
That is, so as much as we'd like to do it, visualizing the old Cocoon movie, it's not like we could put this in a swimming pool and have everybody swimming around in it, because we wouldn't have that unique biosignature effect if we were to do that.
Let's back up for a second. I just want to kind of preface everything with what this device is. It's an electromagnetic device. You'll get a unit that you plug into the wall, so you have the actual Jing Orb unit, and then from that unit, yes, you have a plug that goes into the wall, but there's another wire that basically comes out that goes to the orb, and that orb will sit in the bathtub with you, or you'll put it, sometimes we get a plastic tub that's like this and we'll put our feet in it, again, just one person at a time. Or I have done the thing of just my arm and my elbow in there, and that does work, and that is enough.
Yes, it is. It's pretty amazing, because it's essentially affecting all the water in your body, even if you only put your hand in it, because as the blood circulates through your hand, it's moving the water through your hand, and then it goes to the rest of your body and affects all your cells.
Let's say somebody's going to be using the Jing Orb for healing, and they're in a crisis situation. They've been battling for their lives in some way, shape, or form. Their Jing is very low. I always recommend, as per your advice, that they get using the Jing Orb once every 2 days for 60 straight days. So 30 treatments is typically what I'm recommending. But my experience has been using the Jing Orb, and for everyone who I've offered it to who's decided, hey, I want to get a ride on this, or they needed it for healing and needed 14 days in a row, or sometimes even a month in a row, it's a similar thing. So it kind of brings you up, but you don't come all the way back down again. You're up higher, and then you go up, and then you're still up higher. And then eventually you get back to your original level of Jing. And then, at this point, I'm just using it to increase. So at this point, do I really notice like something amazing is happening? I do notice something is happening, and something good, but it's hard to really get a reading on that, as compared to someone who's been beaten up or they're really
Sure.
injured. It's like the speed with which somebody who's really injured recovers is really noticeable.
Yeah, I mean, and that just goes back to how amazing and miraculous our bodies are and our cells are. And that when everything is there that it needs, that it's got the energy resources, it's got the nutritional resources, that things can happen dramatically quickly as long as it has what it needs to do what it knows already what to do.
That's why I've always had my eyes on these kinds of technologies, because there are definitely aspects of ourselves that can't really be touched by nutrition as quickly as they can be by electromagnetics
That's
and
right.
water. I mean, you start putting electromagnetics in water and then you're bathing in that, or your hands are in that, or affected areas of your body are in that. It's a whole different level of potential and a whole different speed of healing going on. So that's one of the things that attracted me to the Jing Orb in the beginning anyway. So let's backtrack here. I just want to get into the history of this device. And one of the ways I was really open to it is I had seen similar devices way back when, maybe even 15 years ago, that every now and then miraculous stuff would be happening, but then other devices similar, nothing would be happening. And so eventually when I found you were telling me that there was like, this kind of core technology was out there, but then there was cheap knockoff technology that was out there, and it kind of destroyed and ruined that entire industry back then. Is that kind of
Yeah,
right?
that's really true. I bumped into Terry in late 1999, and that was the first time I saw the unit, and it was called the Bioelectric Field Enhancement Unit. They used to call it the BEFI for Bioelectric Field Enhancement. And when you put this thing in water, depending upon which water you're using, sometimes, a good part of the time, you're going to get some of the positive electrodes, the positive rings in there that will actually start to break down over time. And when that happens, it puts rust into the water and triggers something called electrolytic precipitation, where the dissolved solids start to precipitate out. It kind of reminds me of, I remember years ago, somebody coming to my home that wanted to sell us a whole house purification system. And they use this little device. They grab some of your water and they take some of their purified water and put it in 2 jars with this little device that electrodes. And in the tap water, the water gets all yellow and brown. And they say, look what you're drinking compared to that, and I'm looking at that and I'm going, I don't think that's what that's all about. And then as I looked into it, it's creating this precipitation. Well, sometimes that occurred with the original technology. And now what's kind of interesting about it, David, is that early on, when we were letting practitioners use the technology just to get a feel for it, they were coming back and they were saying, man, this is amazing what it's doing to accelerate the detox regimens that we've been doing with all of our new clientele. I mean, it's definitely doing something extraordinary from that point of view, including, seeing all kinds of things and coming out in the urine analysis and stuff like that. But so they knew that it was really helping the detox. But one of my distributors really started getting into this whole concept of the stuff in the water being toxin somehow being pulled out of your body into the water. And, that was really problematic in a lot of different ways. Because it's not accurate. It's always about raising your body's energy resources so it's the normal channels of elimination can work through the normal ways, whether it's the kidneys or the bowel or the lungs or the skin, but not this idea of pulling it into the water. And he started telling people that's what it was, and he found that he could sell a lot of units doing that. And when I found out what he was doing and put an end to it, he left my company, hired an engineer just to create this drama in the water. He didn't understand the bioenergetics of the whole thing and completely made something totally different. But it was an electrical device that had a part that went into the water. The water would change color. They would tell people that that was toxins coming into the water. It created a lot of carnival atmosphere around it. People wanted to believe it. And then you started having people doing exposés because they would turn the unit on with nobody in the water, and then the water would turn color and they'd say, see, I told you this wasn't real, and things of that nature. And it got to be really problematic for us because I didn't really have the core science to say, hey, wait a minute, this isn't about the color of the water. This is about bioelectric field enhancement. But as I mentioned, when we were talking about it before, when this woman went and did her PhD dissertation research on this technology or an earlier version of our technology and found out everything it was doing, that's what really inspired me to get back into the fray here and say people need to know what this is all about. Where before it was just really difficult because people wanted to believe that those were toxins coming out of their body.
Yeah, those foot detox baths just
Exactly.
ruined the whole thing, and that's for me. I couldn't tell what was the right thing or the wrong thing. This is back 15 years ago. So until you got back in touch with me, I didn't really know the backstory. So you kind of filled me in on the backstory, and I was like, okay, I knew some of these worked, but some of them didn't. I couldn't figure out what was going on. But then eventually, when you got to this gal's research, who did her PhD on the device, what was interesting about that research and her entire thesis to me, it was a completely new concept to me, a big concept already in science, but a new concept to me was the unfolded protein problem. It's really something. I want to just go through this unfolded protein response. It's such an interesting concept, a huge concept in science. It's massive.
It really
But
is.
for most of us, we'd never heard of it. And what's basically going on is that when that protein's manufactured, as you were saying, Michael, it has to be folded in a certain pattern. And that's the thing. If you ever look up the structure of proteins, you get on the internet and you look up the structure of proteins, they can be incredibly complex, especially enzymes. And you're like, what the heck is going on there? So this three-dimensional object, well, it's got to be folded like origami into that shape. And the part of the cell that does that is the endoplasmic reticulum.
Exactly.
And if there is a disturbance there, it will cascade down into almost every cellular problem known. This is breakthrough stuff. And if you really think about it, what's the best way to get at a problem like that? Well, most likely the problem is being caused just like in us, like let's say constipation. There's not enough energy to move the waste out. Essentially, it's an energetic issue, right? We don't have enough electrolytes, usually not enough salts or different types of electrolytes and water to get the hydration, to get the energy up to move the toxins out. So we start backing up in our own waste. That's almost an exact parallel to what's happening with the unfolded protein responses. It gets backed up. There's a breakdown in the folding of the protein, and the cellular mechanics that fold the protein break down. Thinking, with this, you really feel that. That's the thing about the Jing Orb. If there's one thing you can really say, you're like, something's going on. It's at the cellular level. It's deep. It's at the core. It's not a chi thing. It's not like you get up and you're like, oh, I got all this energy. I'm going berserk. It's not like that at all. It's like there's a subtle thing. It just goes click. That's one treatment. Next day, click. 3 days later, click. A week later, click. And that's why that it so speaks to Jing, because Jing ultimately is a core essence, right? And that's really our cellular electromagnetism and the related energies of it. And if all that's firing off correctly, it will show up as your healing. It will show up as Jing. It'll show up as you having resiliency. It'll show up as you having energy. The last year I did a fast. I did a 40-day liquid diet fast, ending up in a water fast. And then I was using the Jing Orb at the end of that. It was the best thing ever. I mean, it was truly when you're that cleaned out and you've been through that process and all of a sudden you're in the last 3 days of it and you're just Jing Orb. I was going maybe every 36 hours. Because I wanted to squeeze as much in as I could in those last 3 days. So I got 3 sessions in. It was just divine. I mean, you can really feel it. It's a little harder, when we get back to our normal lives and kind of normal eating and stuff. And, if you're injured, you'll feel it. If you got something going wrong, you'll feel it. But for everyday people like us, that's why I've always got to be like, no, I'm getting in that tub 35 minutes with the Jing Orb on. You have to kind of discipline yourself to do it, because unless you feel that immediate need for healing, you might go, oh, I'll skip it today, or, I'll skip it this week. And I definitely would caution people to avoid that, because you're right. There is something that goes on that adds an extra oomph into your week, into your day, into your afternoon that just wasn't there before.
Yeah, it really is special. And pretty much everything that we've used diagnostically to see before and after type of scenarios with it shows wonderful, after results. So even if you don't necessarily feel it, if our intellect is going crazy and our minds are off in a million different directions and we're not tuned into what's going on in our body, it doesn't mean that great stuff is not happening.
Well said. Again, that's just if you're feeling great and everything's going well, you can tell something good is happening, but for sure when you're needing it, you feel it more. Let's back into this concept with the Jing Orb. I want to just unpack this a little bit. People are going to be thinking like, okay, I'm a yoga teacher, I'm a practitioner, I'm a doctor, a chiropractor, whatever. How do you use this thing? What my friends have been doing is putting it in the waiting room in their clinics.
Yes.
That's a really good one, because a lot of times, like I went to see an acupuncturist when I was in Australia, and I was in there a good 35 to 40 minutes before I got to see him. And I could have been sitting there right there with my feet in the thing or my hands in there and getting a treatment right there. So that if you're in that kind of role, it's not a thing just for you, but you want to use it for your clinic, your practice, maybe after yoga, before yoga, that's the application. You basically get a tub of water and you put people's feet in it or you put people's hands in there, whatever. And again, one person at a time, and then you do it that way. And that's what I've seen my friends do. Which I needed for my foot at that time. And I was so glad to have it, because just being able to get my foot into there, the inflammation, with a broken foot, this is the whole thing. You got so much weight on your foot every day. You don't even realize it until you have a problem there. And then, your body's trying to get the goodies in there. And once you're in a tub and you've got the salts in there, you got the Jing Orb in there, and it's warmed up and you can just relax and the weight's off. Wow, that was one of my keys to healing for sure. And I'm going to mention that more actually, because people ask me about, when I broke my foot, what I did. And there's a couple of major principles. One is I ate less. I took a ton of enzymes. But one of the key ones that I did acupuncture. And one of the key ones that I did, a big one, was the Jing Orb.
Yes.
You can travel wherever you are. And actually, I was traveling with it when I finally got the unit, which was so great. And I had to go do an event in Montreal. And so I had to drive over there, which is, 6 hours and all this. And then we get there and boom, I was able to get into the hotel room, get the bath poured, put the whole thing in there. Again, you don't need a bath, but I like the bath best. That's just my personal preference. You can use a tub, whatever. But I was able to get in the whole bath and then, was able to do the events and stuff that I needed to do, and then come back another maybe 36 hours later, 48 hours later, do another session in there. And I think I actually got 2 sessions in that hotel room, which really saved me, because if you've ever broken a foot or you've ever been through this, you know how it is. When you get up and you have to walk on crutches and you have to go through your whole day like normal and maybe 2 or 3 days like normal, and you don't have really time to rest because you're working, it can get really irritated and inflamed.
Yeah.
And that was another thing that really registered for me. It was like, whoa, this thing, like I had no problems whatsoever with my foot. If anything, it actually improved while I was on that trip. And thanks to the Jing Orb, this has been really a breakthrough product for my household too. I want to say this, because it's not just, like when people come to my house, a lot of times we put them through a whole healing regime. So, they're going into the infrared sauna. Then we have what's called a Soaky bed, which is another infrared healing device that a friend of mine, she used to be a professional rodeoer in Canada way back when in the 50s. She was like national champion of Canada. She broke her hip. Boom, we put her in that thing. Then we get him into the tub. So it's not, you don't just come over and just for a visit. If you're going to be there for 3 days, you're actually doing stuff, like for your own healing. And the Jing Orb has become part of our protocol now, which is awesome.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. My whole family is using it. And one thing I do want to mention, getting back to putting containers of water in the bath, if you put containers of water in a bath with nobody in the bath with it, then that water is like a generically charged water, and anybody can drink that. And I mention that because I use that to make up water for our animals, for our dogs and cats.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
And they love it. They love it.
Okay, let's back up again. So this is important. You're going to have the device. You're going to plug it in, then you've got your electromagnetic device, and then it's got another wire that comes off with the orb attached. That goes into the water. You can put bottles of water in there, that are sealed, of course, and then run the Jing Orb for 35 minutes, and it's going to charge up all those waters right through the glass. Right?
That's right. And it'll have the effect. It'll hold that charge for about 3 days.
Okay, I didn't realize that part. I
Yeah.
always drink it right away. You'll see, this is another thing too. This is again that thing that reminds me of the radionics from the old days. It's so agreeable when you start drinking that water. You want to drink. I just end up drinking the
Yeah.
whole thing. That's what ends
I
up happening.
know. I know. I really love it. And you're right. You know, you can put multiple bottles in there. And there's been people experimenting with other kinds of bottles of things that they put in as well with really good results. So, you know, Donald, our friend, when he was over in Thailand, he was over at a facility it was a manufacturer of different kinds of teas and things, and you know, really great teas. And they tried putting the bottles of the infused tea into the bath, and they were like really wowed. I mean, in terms of what it did, the flavor, the way it changed it, the effectiveness of it.
Tell me what you think about this. Just that you're saying this, I'm thinking maybe I should do my indoor plants that way. I should charge up the bottles for them. Why
Oh
not?
yeah, they would love it.
Is it possible? Let me ask you this. What about putting an animal in the water, putting their paw in or something like that? Or I mean, most animals don't like to sit in water for 35 minutes, but is that possible to do that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we've had incredible results with that. People talking about doing that with everything from horses to you know, dogs, having great results in it. And it doesn't necessarily mean they have to do the full 35 minutes. That's just kind of ideal. But even with people, I kind of like it to say that whatever your body is comfortable with. If you start to feel antsy, then maybe your body's saying, "Hey, I've assimilated as much energy as I can at this particular time."
I want to mention one more thing that I'd like to do, Michael, and I just want to just throw this out there is sometimes in the middle of winter up there in Canada where it's really, really cold and it's, you know, between 2 or 3 in the morning. And sometimes I'll be, you know, really wiped out from maybe fasting or something, not eating it a whole bunch. And I want to warm up my bones. What I'll do is I'll put the bath on really, really hot.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then throw the Jing Orb in there and then just sit there and just kind of it's almost like a sauna sweat in that thing.
Oh, I know. And your body really sweats big time from it.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites. It's really a breakthrough technology, and I always keep my eye on the best technologies that are out there. And this is something also that I've been using now for years. So I've noticed that if you use something repeatedly for years, that tells you something about the technology. You know, we come from a healing directive that understands that if you give the body what it requires, the energies that it requires, the nutrition that it requires, the environment, the emotional cohesion that is needed for healing, your body will heal. And it will heal from almost any situation that could ever be thrown at you. But it's not just food. It's not just emotional wellness. It's everything. It's like spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, energetic wellness, water and health of water around you. And the Jing Orb at least covers a couple of those categories, which is so phenomenal. I love its transportability. I love that you can use it with any water you have access to. I love it that you can do it like we were doing it at a show. You did it at one of our longevity conferences, and I think you guys were just doing hands and feet, you know, because we couldn't get people into a bathtub there
Yeah,
unless they
just
were up in
hands.
their room.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everyone was having a blast with it. We had quite a few people, especially practitioners, who were like, I want that for my office. That was really cool. So it's very useful and usable. This is a chance for you to take your bath to the next level. Because that's really what it's about. Like, you know, my assistant Robin a lot of times will just get it all prepared for me, and then boom, you know, all I have to do is just jump in there and then hit the button and start, and away we go, which is just great. But it's easy to do yourself too. You know, many times 2 or 3 in the morning, I'll be like, you know what, I'm not really tired enough to go to bed, but I don't want to read anymore or look at, you know, with my eyes, but I'm still up. So let me go listen to something, and I'll go get in the bathtub with the Jing Orb on. And it's just an absolute delight, you know, heal yourself and enjoy, you know, your time as well.
Well, that's great. Well, I'm glad that you're enjoying it so well, as much as my whole family is, and many, many other people. I mean, it really is an extraordinary piece of equipment. I really feel that it was a gift when it came into my life. And, you know, I've been sharing it with people, and people really appreciate it.
It's one of those things, you know, again, the proof is in the using. If you
Yeah.
find that you keep using it, there's something going on there. And I have every gadget. I mean, I have so many. I've got gadgets right on my desk right here, gadgets here. I got gadgets over here. But I find that this one, over the years, I use it and I want to use it. And some instinct tells me like, hey, get that thing in there. Get in the bathtub. Throw that thing in there. And it's just, that means something very important. It's your body's own inner knowing saying, hey, get back on this thing. So I don't ever go longer. I mean, if I travel in Australia for like a month, I don't bring it with me on a trip like that. But when I'm at home, it's for sure at least once a week. And when I'm really on it, like if I, with my broken foot or something, it's every other day. I'm on it that regularly. And sometimes it's every other day just for the heck of it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, it depends on what life's doing and, how stressful things are. I find it just amazing to melt that stress away.
That's it. I guess let's leave it on that point. What is better than getting a nice hot bath with a little bit of magnesium salts in there and throwing the Jing Orb in there and just kicking it for 35 minutes? You're going to be hard pressed to find something better for you than that. To beat the stress, there's probably nothing. I don't think there's anything going to beat that. It's, I just find that, being in that tub with the Jing Orb, again, you can use it in a different way, put it in a bucket, put your foot in a bucket, you can, however you want to do it, put it in your waiting room with your patients coming in. But it'll amplify things in a really interesting way. Again, this is why we make that distinction between Jing and Qi. Qi is like an amped up energy. It's a response energy. It's how you mobilize energy, immunological energy, blood energy, and physical energy. But Jing is a deeper thing. So there's no stimulant thing about this, which we just want to bring that in here because people will be like, energy stimulants. I can't handle any stimulants. It's like, no, this doesn't have anything to do with any kind of stimulant. It's not a stimulant energy. It's just a slow, like, increase. And it's not the frenetic energy of the day. It's a core energy, the core Jing energy, the kidney energy, the cellular energy that gives you more oomph throughout all your life processes.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, think of your body as like a big battery and you charge your battery where all your cells are little batteries. When the battery is charged, it's not that it's putting out more power, it just puts out power longer. And so that's kind of what the comparison is.
Yeah, well said. That's just well said. Because I get people all the time, they're like, I can't handle any more energy. I'm too amped up. I can't even drink coffee. It's like, no, this is nothing like that at all. Actually, it will calm you. When your Jing is topped up, you're in a state of calm, and you're also in a place of power. Power as opposed to force,
Yes.
right? It's a different thing. It's your core essence of your being. And what a great thing to be working with you guys on the Jing Orb. This has just been a fun project all along, Michael. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who's been listening. Thank you so much. I'm David Avocado Wolfe. This is Michael Stern. We're talking about the Jing Orb and the magic of this electromagnetic device, which does so many wonderful things to your body, to your cells, to water, and to your life.
Great. Thank you so much, David.
That was great. Thank you.